everyone. Welcome to Momming and Thriving. Today we have Dr. Chinenye. She is someone I've known for a very long time. She's a GP in the UK. She is a mom of two, amazing, and just a very lovely person. But I want her to introduce herself and tell you what she's passionate about before we start today's episode. All right, Chinenye, over to you.
Hello, everyone. And hello, Tony. Thanks for having me here. My name is Chinenye Onyeka. Some people call me Yvonne, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm a mom of two boys. I have a son with special needs, particularly autism. And I also am a medical doctor in the UK. I'm currently a GP trainee, so it's more of a GP specialty trainee. And I'm very, very passionate about parenting children with special needs, not particularly autism, but every other form of special needs like cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, children with other forms of genetic disorders. I'm very passionate about it. And so, yeah, I'm here to just share with you on personal experiences, what I've learned over the years, both formally and informally. So, yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Chinenye, for that lovely introduction. And I'm so glad you mentioned not just autism, because some people are not aware of some of these conditions, but I'm glad we're going to touch on some of them today.
Yeah.
But before we go into parenting, let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about Chinenye. How were you as a child?
Yeah.
What were some of your fondest childhood memories? I know some of them, but I won't say anything. I want you to say them.
I say, okay, I'm the second of four children. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and I was just one happy child, really. I think my first few years, like up to like 5 years old, I didn't really have pictures that will show me smiling or happy or whatsoever. I don't know why, but as the years progressed, I started becoming that happy, child. But one thing I remember about myself really as a child was that I used to get in trouble a lot for telling the truth. And sometimes I just wouldn't know how to sugarcoat narratives. It was just
You
something
say
that
that.
I just say I get in trouble. I remember one time there's this guy that was toasting my auntie because my auntie was living with us. I think she was doing NYSC or something. And this guy was toasting my auntie. So my auntie saw this guy from upstairs. She saw him through the window. Then she sent me downstairs to go to the gate and tell him she was not around. I won't lie to you. I went downstairs and said, she said I should tell you she's not around. The guy just started laughing. I went back to meet my aunt. My aunt said, this girl, you self. And obviously, she had to go back. And I honestly did not know that I had done something wrong by saying she said I should tell you she's not around. I should have just said she's not around. But she had to go and deal with this guy. So yeah, I used to get into trouble for just saying it as it is. But obviously, as time has progressed, I started learning political correctness.
Filter. Oh, you need to be politically correct these days.
Yeah. So we don't offend anybody. So yeah, that's me basically. That's Chinenye.
Okay, so what about your school years? So there's a story you told me that comes to mind when we were in school, about someone called Movement. Do you remember that story that someone got?
When we were swimming.
I forgot it, but it was so I've got a very graphical mind. So when you told me that story, it was so fascinating to me, and I never forgot it. And I told you I'm gonna shock you by reminding you today. Imagine over 20 years ago.
Have a good memory. That movement wanted to jump in the pool, and then they call him. Was it that they spelled movement or so? And then he just
jumped inside, and the water splashed everywhere.
Oh my goodness! So your memory is really sound and sharp. I can't believe it. How many years? Up to 20 years now. Oh bless.
Yeah.
Childhood was really nice, though. I mean, obviously our parents want to show us the challenges of life they went through, but like having to have a loving family even in the midst of the storm that they were going through, and
Mm,
wonderful siblings, support system, playing like you don't care. I miss my childhood to an extent. I won't lie to you, and I really wish
mm.
my children would have a glimpse of, even though yes, they have a wonderful childhood, but like have a glimpse of what childhood back in Nigeria, back when Nigeria was Nigeria.
I totally agree with you. There is a part of, like you said, back when Nigeria was Nigeria, before I moved to Lagos, I used to live in Benin, and that was one
Yeah,
of my fondest childhood memories. Just being around, playing outside, the weather was good, interacting with the neighbors, climbing the
neighbors,
trees,
trees,
shaking the trees
exactly.
for
For
the
your
fruits.
fruit to come down.
Oh,
Yeah, my
the
children
fruit will
would,
come down. You
you
pick
know,
it up, you put it in a
yeah,
bucket, you wash, and you
wash and
binge on the
eat.
fruit.
Yeah,
Oh, it was
absolutely,
amazing. It was amazing.
absolute
Yeah.
trees, guava trees. There was this fruit we used to call fruits back in Lagos. I don't know if
Yeah,
fruit.
it's called fruit, but I think it's almond. It's
And
almond fruit, but in Benin we call it ebelebo, but it is
okay,
almond fruit because they when you break that fruit, the seed inside is the
the
almond
nut.
nuts that we eat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, back then,
yeah.
as a child, we'll take sticks and just, you know, hit it, and then it falls. Whoever is brave enough to climb, but obviously, we won't try that, or we'll throw our slippers to just hit the fruit for it to come down. And that was the innocence of childhood then, playing
Mm-hmm.
outside. And that's anyway, as we talk, that's things I would like to share, because it's really important. Children learn through play, and this is some form of passive learning, that they get to understand nature, they get to understand the beauty of life and forget about the hustles of the real
Mm-hmm.
world. So yeah.
To touch on your point, would you say now that a lot of kids are indoors all the time with their iPads, do you think that has an impact or knock-on effect on the increase in what it seems like special needs cases? Would you say that there is a
I
link or maybe?
link. Okay, so scientifically, I don't have any evidence, but I've watched some documentaries of them insinuating about children losing the ability to concentrate. So the more time that they spend on screen, they're really, really focused, keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Their attention level is getting more and more depleted, sort of, because they're focusing more on that thing. So what on that, I don't have any scientific evidence to point that. If not, I would have confidently said that. But I feel like children playing outside, engaging more with nature, going outside, there are so many skills that they develop. First of all, they learn to appreciate nature. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Their confidence level, because they're going out of their boundaries, they're going out of their borders. So you talked about climbing the trees now. Okay. How many
Mm-hmm.
children are confident now to climb the tree?
Mm,
there's this fear in
mm,
them, so they won't want to take that step, that bold step. They learn different things, so they learn through play by engaging with nature. And even if you look at this month, I don't know if you're aware of this Montessori form of education.
approach, yeah.
That's the kind of idea they want the children to go outside also to engage, with most of all this nature. So I feel like children will have a better form of intellectual development, sort of, when they start going outside to engage more. But yeah,
100%. It's just that it's really tough these days.
yeah,
But there's been, even as a teacher, I've noticed a lot of my students struggle with keeping attention.
attention, yeah,
Attention is a big thing. It's a big thing because a lot of them, on average, they spend hours on TikTok. Because I teach teenagers, they spend hours on TikTok, constant short reels, and it's like their mind is constantly bombarded with information. So to ask them to read like a 3-page essay, it's like
it's
they
difficult.
struggle to. It's difficult. It's
Yeah,
difficult, and I'm
yeah.
wondering what the knock-on effect of this will be in a few years. So as parents, I think we have to be really intentional about screen times and just constantly finding a way to engage them with nature, engage them with
Yeah.
the environment.
I was reflecting on our childhood as well. Sorry, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
back to Nigeria, but I remember, like, a typical Monday, for instance. We wake up, you go to school, we play, have short break, you come outside and play. You're outside, boys
Mm-hmm.
running, girls playing 10 10, creative, and the teachers leave us to play. We go back
Mhm.
inside, we eat, we do our schoolwork, then come out for lunch break. After eating, you go outside and play. So you have like 2 sessions of play, right? Go back to class again, do assembly, and then go back home. TV comes on by 4 o'clock. Do you remember NTA? And you see that
Mhm.
multicolored line, and then we are waiting for NTA. You remember? And then
Yeah.
we watch our shows, maybe max, maybe like 4 to like 6 or so. Then we have to start getting ready to wash up and get ready
Maybe for bed.
bedtime. And even that 4 to 6, most of us will not even sit down and watch all the whole shows immediately, because we'll watch small, we'll go outside and play with our friends, come back again. So you could see that in your childhood, your screen time exposure was minimal compared to what our children are having now. Children have
Mhm.
access to iPlayer, so they can do catch up. They have access to
Mhm.
YouTube or Netflix for children and whatever, and they have a longer time of exposure to the shows, So you know how you would watch one episode of, mind me, let me say Tom and Jerry now, whatever.
Um.
So
Um. Danger Mouse. Do you remember
Danger
Danger
Mouse,
Mouse?
exactly. So imagine watching one episode of Danger Mouse, maybe like 20 minutes. That is if it's up to 20 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
But now on iPlayer, we have, for instance,
Thousands of shows.
thousands of
Thousands.
shows. Then they have multiple episodes, so you have been, and they
Mm.
have spent so much time trying to watch it. I remember my son was watching Bluey. There was a time I saw my son watching Bluey. I think it's an Australian cartoon about this dog, and he watched multiple episodes. And by the time when I came back and I saw him, he was zonked out. You could see the exhaustion on him, but he couldn't come out of the screen. It's like, what is
Mm.
this? What is this? No, no,
Mm.
no, 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 no. It's not like I don't want you to enjoy your show, but there should be a limit to this, because
100%.
I need your cognitive function, and you're still young. I don't want your brain cells being damaged. So yes, that is where we are in present day.
That's where we are. That's where we are. But there is also actually, I don't have the research as well, but I actually read somewhere. It's just I can't remember the exact paper about for children less than 2 years old, if they're constantly exposed to things like Cocomelon, which everybody watches, well, most people are watching, like those shows are very highly stimulating shows and it keeps them engaged. But the issue is it actually slows down normal cognitive development, like in a way that so there's been an increase in amount of kids that are having
ADHD,
speech delay. I don't know
delay,
about ADHD, but speech delay.
speech delay. Good.
So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's constantly because their brain is constantly fed. And if you look at those shows, there's so many colors, there's so many actions, so many movement. And
Mm,
I think the natural process, I'm not a doctor again, but
mm.
for children less than 2, it's like they're meant to, their cognitive process is it's different from
Rapid,
us as
yes,
adults.
because it's rapidly developing. They are at
Yeah,
that phase. It's rapidly developing. You need to engage them. You need to be able
them
to engage the children. Stimulate
in
that
a
space.
3D format, in the fact that as an adult you're interacting with them as opposed to, because the screen is passive. The screen
Just
is
there in
stood,
their
yeah,
face.
there.
Mhm.
So
And back to autism. When my son was transitioning from infancy to toddler phase, I was
mm,
working full time in the NHS. I was doing like 4 nights in a row or 4 long days in a row. So, and my husband too was working as well. And this was an only child. So, I spent a lot of time on screen. The likes of them, Coco Melon families, Little Baby Bomb. He would sit down on screen. And there was no time to really really engage and stimulate him, like just talk. Imagine mom coming back from home, mom is exhausted, all I wanted to do was just sleep. and, you know
totally.
and that too, that coming back from work, all he wanted to do was sleep. So less is hard. I'm not blaming myself for it. I'm not
No,
blaming
you
myself.
shouldn't. No, you
I'm
shouldn't.
definitely not blaming myself. However, what I'm just is a reflection, like what would have done better, and that is why I'm applying it to my second child now, actively. Like interaction, I've started interacting from my baby from my womb, talking to the baby,
Mm,
stimulating that, like, I know that you have it in here. I need those language centers active. I need your speech centers active. I need you to start talking. And I can see, and like I said, I have no scientific evidence. This is my
Mm-hmm.
own personal application to it. Some people ask, why is it that immigrant parents, people who have come from like Nigeria or wherever to the
Mm-hmm.
UK or America for this greener pasture or economical improvement, why is that you see that their first children, especially the children that they give birth to here,
Mm.
most of them have delayed speech. Now,
Mm. As soon
I,
as you said that, I have about 5 people in mind that just crossed my mind. I
I
never
know
really made that
I know
connection.
many
Keep
mothers.
going.
Now,
Mm.
I have no scientific evidence, but this
Mm-hmm.
is my own theory. Most parents are out to hustle. And we want to make this, we
Mm.
want to pay the bills and all that. We love our children, but we feel that our nanny is Coco Melon. We feel our nanny
Mm.
is little baby bomb. And so you see, if you look at it, if you identify it, they leave their children. I'm talking about first children. They leave these
Mm.
children on screen and they crack on with life. Maybe one nanny can come and look after that child. That nanny too doesn't engage that child well. So the child is left to figure out how to speak on his own. They don't know, because we have to be active and again, if you look at these parents, most of them that come, you see that they don't really have that much time with the children, because by the time they come back, they are so exhausted, so stressed out, and sometimes they may even take out their stress on the child, shouting maybe the child is coming, throwing a tantrum for attention. They might just take out that stress on the child and shout, "You leave me alone, you don't see I'm tired, leave me, they shout on that child." I feel like we need to take out more time in actively engaging our children verbally, communicating
100%.
with them. In
Mm-mm.
Nigeria, another thing is our culture. In Nigeria, we don't talk with our children, we talk at children. That some parents don't even
100%. Yeah.
engage their babies. You say, Oyibo people, see, they're talking to if you if you're even in pediatrics world, if you're in pediatrics world, you see how these people with the babies, oh, Lily, oh, you're crying. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to give you a wash now. I'm going to wipe your bottom. They're talking to Lily. Little Lily is looking at the nurse talking to her, and somehow little Lily is getting the words, and she
Speaking it,
knows,
the
speaking the
words.
words, and little Lily knows that one day she's going to be able to use those words too. And little Lily
Mm.
wants to say, "Oh, hi, thank you." She's going to. But in Nigeria, if you go to the pediatrics ward, how many nurses will you see talking to little Bola? Little Bola, okay, don't cry. What will you hear in Nigeria? You are crying. Okay. You see now. you know, what I'm trying to say
So
is like,
we
especially
need also a re-evaluation in our medical system in Nigeria.
in the
Training
society
also
in general,
in the
in
society in
society's
general.
ability to interact with children.
Mm.
Don't talk at them. Do you understand? I remember when you were
Yeah.
small. I don't know about you. When I was a child, my uncles or my mom, they're gisting, and I go and they say, you're joining seniors gist. Joining seniors gist. That kind of thing. You don't feel like you should be
Mm-hmm.
able to engage there, and then your confidence
Engage.
is
Yeah.
going. So that because they don't see that children have emotions or children have feelings and all that. So these are all the little things I have picked up here and there.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think I'm trying to reverse the case or the narrative.
As you're speaking, I was thinking that the fact that you've had the experience in
Yeah.
both the Nigerian setting and the UK setting, you actually have a holistic view on which things we can improve on from the Nigerian setting. Because remember, we started about highlighting how fantastic our childhood was. So
Yes.
in growing up in Nigeria has its advantages, but then
And
the areas in terms of how we interact can be improved in how adults interact with children. But
yeah.
then also in the UK setting, the fact that everyone is hustling no neighbor is really saying hi to each other. Kids are not out in the street interacting.
Yeah.
That also creates a hollow. That also creates a void.
Yeah.
So both parts actually have things that needs to be improved
Yeah.
on, I think.
Yes. And I think, especially those of us that have come to the diaspora, I think we need a
Mm-hmm.
strong community and advocacy
100%.
for a strong community. Even if you are living in an area that you feel you're the only one, the only black person, or the only African, try to
Mm-hmm.
build a community. It's very important. You can organize play dates, mommy's day,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be relieving. It's even good for the carers, either the mother or the father's mental health as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I bring my child to your son's place, they could play and interact, spend more time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Birthday parties, don't take it for granted. Don't take children's day for granted. Halloween, Christmas, whatever celebration it is, always try so that these children too, they can pick up from one another. Because my children don't know the children next door, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not how I grew up. Even when we grew up and our parents were hustling, at least your next door neighbor's children, you're there to go and play football with, you're there to
Mm-hmm.
play 10-10 with. But our children don't have that luxury, and that's where our own intentionality comes in place. It's a strong community.
Let's go back a little bit. Let me take you back to when you first learned or found out that your son has special needs. What were the first things that came through to your mind? How did you feel at that
Mm,
moment?
mm-hmm. Right. So, um, just a quick background. My pregnancy was absolutely normal. I didn't have any problems with my pregnancy. I didn't have any problems with delivery. Delivery was swift, and my child, we didn't even need any admission. It was discharged as soon as possible, and that was fine. So the perinatal phase was very beautiful. Infancy was fine as well. I didn't have a clue. Mind you, I was a first time mom, so I had no clue. And it's very important I bring this back because we're trying to reason out the possible causes of autism and why we have autism today. Just so you understand that, like, if you don't really know what the possible cause was, and you can carry on with your infancy, the boy was fine, he was doing well. Where I knew there was a problem was during the transition from infancy to toddler phase. I know
Hmm.
that I would call him and he won't answer. You know, he wasn't making eye contact. He was just in his own world. He was there, but he wasn't there, if I put it that way. But I just carried on with life and I said, you know what, he'll outgrow this phase. Maybe it's just a phase. There are times that he would want to get my attention and he'll be banging his head on the wall. And I felt that was a bit odd. I can't understand why you're banging your head on the wall, but that was a form of attention seeking as well. But where I got to that realization, I broke me down, was where I put him in nursery. He started nursery, and the the nursery manager called me to tell me that they started raising concerns. One thing about the system is nobody will come and give you, you know how if you have malaria, you will do a blood test and you say, oh, you have malaria, you have that diagnosis. Here is kind of, there's a way they win you as a parent into that diagnosis. So it's not one day that you get a diagnosis and say, oh, your son has autism. So they kind of like hint you, and you kind of have that psychological build up to coming to the realization that your child has
Hmm.
special needs. And so she hinted me and she told me, oh, he's not interacting with other children, he's on his own, he's in his world, Then they started raising concerns about him not eating. Then one day like this, I just went and read on the autism and I saw like so many of the red flags in my child, and I was like, what is this? That day it was just me and my son, right, in the house. My husband had gone to work. I just carried my son, I put him in one room, and I went to the other room and I fell down and I was crying. I was
Hmm.
bawling on every ground. I was crying and I was telling God, God, forgive me. God, forgive me for all the sins I've committed. Don't let my child take my punishment. Like, obviously,
Hmm.
I'm a woman of faith. And so, all forms of emotions. What will happen to his future? Will he be bullied? Is he going to have a good career? Is he going to do this? I was crying. What would people say? Like I was just all over the place emotionally. And then I kept bawling. And after that, and thankfully he wasn't there in the room. I put him in another room. I just stood up, cleaned my eyes, stood up, and I went to my son and I was like, okay, let's do this. Like,
Let's do this.
yeah,
You
I
put
was
your
like,
boxing gloves on.
I was like,
Let's
this
do
is my
this.
child,
Yeah.
and I am
Yeah.
going to fight for you till the
Mm.
very end. Mind you,
100%.
when I was
100%.
telling my husband, because reactions are different. Some people have
Mm.
acceptance, some people start with denial. My
Mm.
husband was in denial, full blown denial, and bless his heart, he too, because we're both new parents. In fact, at least I had an advantage. I had nurtured my sister's children or my auntie's children. So I have had an
Mm.
idea of looking after children. You know what I mean? But he, a Nigerian guy, what's his own? He doesn't, do all those things. So when it came to his own first child, he was in denial. I was like, no, nothing. There's nothing wrong with my son. And I've asked a lot of mothers about this, like what were their father's reactions, like the father of your children, or whatever. And they'll say, my husband said
The
there's nothing
same
wrong with
thing.
that, and it's not because the men do not care about their children. Probably they are just in denial at that point in time. It took a
Mm.
while though before he got to acceptance. But that day that I fell down before God and I was crying, as soon as, I mean, God didn't come down from heaven to say, okay, it's over, wake up, clean your eyes. I cried, but I knew that when I stood up and I cleaned my eyes, I got strength and I was ready to face
Mm.
this thing called autism. And yeah, and it's been a wonderful ride. It's had its challenges, but it's also
Mm.
a beautiful thing. I didn't ask for it, but I am not, like, I don't regret one bit in this journey.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Mm.
I love my son to bits. And if you try my child, if you try, I will come and tear you. I will tear you.
Oh my. That's
you
why I said
know,
that your boxing gloves is on.
yeah,
You are
yeah,
ready for this. No,
yeah, yeah,
Chinenye, I wanted to touch on this because as you were speaking, it just came to my heart. You said God didn't come down from heaven. God didn't need to come down from heaven because God is inside you already.
yeah,
God
yeah,
is inside you. He's
yeah.
enabled you to do this. So, oh,
Exactly. And it's very important we understand this, because back at home, some people may see
mhm.
this as a curse. Some people may say,
Mm,
they don't jazz on you.
stigma, the
They don't,
stigma, the
there's this
stigma around it.
stigma. There's this stigma.
Mm,
So two people are affected in this narrative: the child and the carer or the parent. You, as the
mm,
parent, you are ashamed to care for your child. The child on his own suffers neglect on every side.
mm,
There are narratives
mm,
of parents that lock their autistic children in their houses
mm,
at home.
mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
the life of that child is wasted indoors. Let them go out, let them explore, let them learn. And these children, they learn. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at how
Mm,
these children learn. Let me give you an example. One day I was busy working. My son, obviously, he needed to do something. And so I drew a house. Okay, I drew a house
mm-hmm.
and I gave him his crayon and I said, color this for me. So I went to do whatever I was doing and I came back. This boy did not color this page, but that house, he added some windows to the house. He drew another door. He drew a fence. He drew the sun. He
Mm.
drew a bird. He drew like some grasses there. And then I was like, I know I told you to color this, but you've made me see this house in another dimension.
Mention.
I only drew a house.
Wow.
I only drew
Wow.
a house for him to color,
Wow.
but he drew like so many other things on that. And I started, wow. So yes, this house actually needed a fence. Yes, there's a garden. It needed more windows. There's a sun there. There's a bed sitting on the fence. Beautiful.
He improved your drawing.
You
He improved your drawing.
understand? So they see the world
Mm. in a
different.
different
I'll
way.
and now I'm talking about autism, even Down syndrome, children with Down syndrome. I'll give you another example. I remember a lady telling me about her younger brother that had Down
Mm.
syndrome in Nigeria, and they went to church, and the pastor was preaching, and this boy just stood up in the middle of service and just walked up to the pastor and gave the pastor a hug, as
Oh
in
my God.
as in so that boy just showed another form of compassion. Like, you don't know whether that pastor actually needed that hug. You don't know, like,
Mm.
there's this compassion. So these children make you see. I know we are all fixed on the typical world. We are all fixed on achieving, doing this, but they make you slow down and see
Mm.
this world or see life in a very beautiful and different light. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I'm so excited
No,
about
no,
what I'm
no.
saying, but that is it.
No,
Like,
no, no. You know what? Thank you for sharing, because one of the questions actually I wanted to ask was, what are the positive things about autism?
oh
Because
yeah.
everyone highlights the challenges. I know it is challenging, but what you're so without even asking my question, you're saying it already. What is the positive thing about autism?
They make you see the world in a different dimension. You see the world in a different way.
Mm.
For instance, now imagine you looking at the light now, okay? And the child is just fixated about all that light. In his head, he's not just seeing the light. He may be seeing streams of rays. He may be seeing another flashing. But you in your
Mhm.
mind, you're like, "Ah, my friend, come, let's go." But they're seeing another thing. They're seeing something more beautiful, and they want to focus to understand what they are seeing. They may not be able to communicate their needs to you. Maybe they may be throwing tantrums and all, but you in your own way, you have to learn how to be empathic and communicate with them. So you yourself, you are now becoming a newer version of yourself. So if
Oh.
you had not
Mm.
told me, if I had not had this, like my son, if I had not had this autism journey, right? Mind you, I was raised in Lagos. Lagos, we have this aggressive, it's not even
Oh
passive
yeah.
aggressive. We have this, that's how I've been there, like full of energy. And my son has trained me in
Mm.
two major things in life: empathy and patience.
Mm.
Empathy and patience. Empathy, I start to see, I try to put myself in that child's shoes.
Shoes.
Like, what is he going through at this point in time? What is he trying to communicate to me? What is it? You put yourself in that child before marriage, before motherhood. If I see a child throwing tantrum, I say, where's your mommy? Don't you need some smacking? You know what I mean? And not because I'm a terrible person, but that was our natural Nigerian upbringing. That was baseline for
Yeah.
us. Obviously, most of us have had the privilege of crossing the shores and then coming to see that life is not as oppressive and aggressive as we have known it to be in that part of the world. So
Mm.
yeah, empathy and patience. I'm patient with my not just my child. I'm patient with children with special needs, because when I see more mothers, like so many of my friends, when they're talking about their children and all that, I can understand where they are
Mm.
coming from, or I can
Mm.
understand. Yeah, so it teaches you a lot. It makes you a better you, and also helps you in caring for that child and seeing the world the way they see the world. Yeah.
So, what do you think we can do as a community? And even I'm thinking about Nigeria now, like, how can we begin to get rid of this stigma? How can we begin to educate mothers, or just make people see these children, not just lock them up away or treat them in a way that they're not humans?
Yeah. Um the truth is that, one, awareness has a big part to play. Good thing is that obviously they've started creating awareness, and when I say people started creating awareness, I'm talking about the cities like in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. But Nigeria is a big country. We have about 36 states. The woman in the village that is frying akara, if she has an autistic child or a child with special needs, does she know? So awareness is not just, oh, in my state, or my street in Lagos, or in this part of Lagos, uh we know about autism, or we have special schools. I'm talking about the inner cores of Nigeria, the hidden corners of Nigeria. How deep is this awareness? And so we need more education. We need to keep increasing, from social media, telling people, word of mouth campaigns. A lot of work has started in Nigeria, and I really must commend most of the people that are, educating on special needs. So awareness
Mm.
is one of it, because if we are
Mhm.
comparing, okay, in UK now, um the councils, they are responsible for education as well. They have the people that are responsible for handling special needs education, and it reaches even in the deepest parts of the counties. So it's not just, so for instance, now let me say I live in Worcestershire now, for instance. It's not just people in Worcester now that have access to this special needs care or education. The people even in the villages, they can always reach out to the council and get the support they need for the
They
education of that
need.
child. And so I think also we should be able to reach deep into that, educating people. That's one. Educating also from antenatal, care, teaching mothers how to interact with their children. Part of your prenatal care, and or they'll always encourage you. You get all these leaflet and packages after you've had your baby. You had your baby here in the UK, so you get all these
Mhm.
leaflets and packages, and how they be encouraging you to be able to interact with your child. Mommy baby clubs and all that. We need to let our mothers know about all this as well, especially back at home in Nigeria and even in the villages. We need to actively teach them how to interact with their children and genuinely care for them. It's not just about feeding them, the physical care, also the emotional care for that child.
Mm.
Educate, educate the teachers, educate
Mm.
the teachers. Don't you remember in primary school?
Mm.
If and I joined in singing the song too. Remember, if somebody doesn't get a question right, what song will they sing? Sing it. Do you remember?
I can't remember the song now, but it's something to do. They'll say the person is a bolo or de or something.
Bolo
Or
Rabata.
the Olodo. Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know,
There was all this slang. There was all these slangs.
slang.
They would say Olodo and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
So the
Mm.
teachers need to be aware of that. If you, for instance, you go
Mm.
in school, do you have a special needs department? Do you have teachers that are trained to be able to teach these children or to
Mm.
assess their level
Mm.
of education? Because I need to teach our teachers on that one. Here in the UK, before a child has access to special school, that child needs what they call an educational health and care plan. In America, I think it's called an IEP, if I'm correct. But here in the UK, it's called EHCP. And so what that entails is that all the specialists, all the professionals that are involved in this child's care and well-being would bring their own input, bring their own assessment. Okay, even mom and dad, parents will write about, okay, for instance, John is my son, he was born this, what John likes, what John doesn't like. They'll tell you about that.
Mhm.
The pediatrician will give his own assessment. The speech and language will give their own assessment. The occupational therapist will give their own assessment. The teacher will give her own assessment as well. And so it's a compilation of every assessment and the need that is identified for that child. Okay,
Mm.
I think I'm digressing from the question you've asked. So I'm
Not
talking to
at all. Not at all. Because
sorry.
as
There's
you're
so many things
highlighting the
ahead.
things that are done. No,
Mm,
no, no. Because as you're highlighting what is being done here in the UK, those are things like footprints of what
yeah,
we can also apply in Nigeria. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
not at all. Carry on.
everybody brings because this child will not come and tell you, oh, this is what I need. So everybody
Mm.
involved in that child's care will bring their own assessment, and then the particular need for that child is whatever the needs particularly highlighted in that assessment is now drafted out, and everybody has strategies to apply to be able to
Mm.
work towards achieving that need. Do you understand? And then it's
Yeah.
reassessed every year. I think that's the same thing
Mm.
that they do in America. And there is a caseworker involved
Mm.
in in the whole approach towards aiming at addressing
Managing.
this need. And so you
Mm.
see that this child is not lost in the system. Okay. Now, if we have this approach as well in Nigeria, that would be very recommendable. You understand? Whether it's from in the private schools or in the public schools, it will be very good to an extent, so that there is something that is being applied. Child is not just lost. Child is not just growing up physically and then not developing or addressing the needs, for instance, the communication needs or emotional needs or the whole well-being of that child, because if
So,
they're able to identify these needs, then they can apply the strategies that are in place for them to achieve the goals that have been highlighted. I think in the education, I don't know how the Ministry of Education, whether they have sectors or departments that are working towards special needs children, looking after us. I don't know. Whoever has information on that, they can let us know. But I don't think I have seen children that have been actively followed up in Nigeria, except those that go private. But the question is, how many people
how
can
many
afford
can afford?
private?
Mhm.
How many can afford private? I mean, it would be nice if our public schools have this,
As
have
well, hundred
as well.
percent
So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. A
to
lot
be
of
done.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Well, I
and
think, as you said,
mm,
awareness is the first thing.
yeah,
Awareness that, okay, your child being this way doesn't mean that it's demonic, because there was a time, I watched a documentary where they say, oh, these children have witchcraft, or there's something, or this kind, so they attach superstition to the stigma.
yes,
And then,
absolutely. And you know that Nigeria, we can be very superstitious, to be honest with you, in
yeah,
Nigeria, and
so
then
the
religious.
the yeah, the first thing, it has to be awareness. That's the first thing, which you mentioned, and then we can start trying to find structures in place from the home front to the school system, and how we
Yes,
can improve gradually.
and even the health and care system
And
as
the
well.
health and care system, like you said, when you talked about even the nurses, how they interact with babies from the ward.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this overhaul, really, and it all boils down to education and awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously now implementing strategies. But the first thing,
Yeah.
education and awareness from the
Mm-hmm.
home front as a mom, from the health sector, then
Mm.
from the education sector. So the
Yeah.
three main structures really that
Mm.
has to involve a child's care.
Another form of
100%.
education is also the nannies that look after these children. That is very
Mm,
important. There are many people that, especially in Nigeria, there are now nanny agencies that are coming up. They need to
mm,
train their nannies on special needs children. It's very important. Train them. Again, I say, when I'm talking about special, I'm not just focusing on autism, even though it's autism I have dealt with for a long time, but I'm talking about also Down syndrome, children with cerebral palsy. They should train them on how to genuinely care for these children. We're teaching them on how to attain a level of independence, their feeding, even communication, even some their school, their homework, play outside. They need to train the nannies. It's very important because some nannies they can be maybe overworked, and when they see a child throwing a tantrum, they will get angry and smack that child. So the child suffers on every ground. So
mm.
it's very important, really. It's very important. Yeah.
So, what, just to round up our questions, what advice would you give to a mom or dad that just found out that their child has autism? What,
Okay.
what, what, what do you wish someone told you?
Well, first of all, love your child with all your heart. Like, love your child very well. It's not your fault. Because one thing that comes to the mind of parents is, what did I do during pregnancy? Did I eat this? Did I take this medicine? It's not your fault that autism came. And so be strong in that. It may be very difficult emotionally. It may be very difficult for some parents. I won't lie to you, because I was able to cry, and then I don't know I don't know how. Maybe God just gave me that strength immediately. So many people may not
Mm,
come out of it. One, so it's not your fault, and so don't wallow in guilt. Or even if you see yourself wallowing in guilt, try to practice some form of self empathy and self care.
mm,
Love your child very well. Love your child. There are many parents that have struggled with this, especially when they see the in quotes negative part of autism. I don't want to say negative part of, because we are the ones saying it as negative.
well, just challenges, basically, the
The
challenges
challenges,
associated with. Yeah.
challenges associated with it. Another thing is about the parents. A lot of parents divorce during when
Mm,
managing this autism. There are I know about people that have left their spouses because they just can't deal, basically, you know. And so that's where self care as a parent is important. Taking out
Mm,
time for yourself to care for yourself emotionally and physically, to be able to
mm,
care for your child. Also, taking out time with your spouses as well, because some parents, they just pour out themselves on the children, and you see that their marriages or their partnership begins to wither down. And I can
mm,
tell you from experience. So we have to learn how to care for your union as well.
mm,
Because when you two are strong emotionally and physically, you're able to care for that child. You're able to put in your very best for that child. Two,
mm,
educate yourself on autism. It's very important. Knowledge is power. Get all the books you can get, but learn with discernment. I remember when I just found out and I started reading up, I started watching a lot of YouTube videos. There were some things that added to me and some things that did not add to me. For instance, like, when they say some people were linking autism to children having heavy metals, and then the, some form of therapies, not evidence based. In America, they practice homeopathic medicine as well.
yeah.
Yeah, and so some things they were doing, I don't think that would have been allowed in the UK or that been practiced there. Get the books that you can read on autism. Know about the educational system where you live. Know about how the educational system is for children with special needs, and even also learn on how to transition your child, if possible, to the mainstream schools if you can. So knowledge is power.
Mm,
Educate yourself very
mm,
well on how the system works on managing autism. Also, there's something I tell myself, and that has helped me. I tell myself that to the system, my child is a statistic, but to me, my child is my child, and so I
mm,
try to take responsibility. So, for instance, if your child is waiting to be seen by the speech and language therapist, obviously, the way the system is, NHS is, there's a long waiting list on almost every specialty. And so, I won't sit down there waiting for the system to come. I'll go out of my way. For instance, if you can afford to have go private on speech and language, by all means do. If you can't afford to, what techniques can you do? You can buy books and read on speech and language. There's some really concise book you can read on and apply these strategies. In fact, I even feel that we, the carers of these children, are the main speech and language therapists for these children, because
mm-hmm.
you
100%.
are the one constantly, communicating with
Being with
the child,
them.
being with
Yeah.
them. So apply the strategies that they put in place. You don't until NHS comes. If NHS comes, fine and good. If they don't come, don't just leave the child to waste um while you're waiting for the therapist, or whether occupational therapist. Start applying this for your child. That will help your child
Mm,
in a long way. So yeah, that's what I would say. And just be kind to yourself. Sometimes we parents, I know we have that, there's this anxiety that comes with, oh, what's the future going to be for my child? Is it gonna have a proper job like other children? Is it gonna be a professional? Just breathe, breathe,
a day
practice
at a time.
self-care a day at a time. And that was a scripture that came to me, that I walk by faith and not by sight, by faith and not
Mm,
by what I am seeing now. And I tell you, Tony, right, looking after this boy, every day opens his own page. Like there's something
mm.
new to learn from him, you know? There's something new. I didn't even know my son was that entertaining. During Christmas, he was singing, "Merry Christmas, everyone." I was like, "Is this you?" And you start seeing this new side of the child, and
Mm,
world is beautiful. And with these children, they make you see the world in a different way. That comes to
mm.
There was this documentary I watched about this British guy that he had a very sharp memory, and he could
Oh, yeah.
drawings, beautiful
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
panorama.
heard.
What's his
Panorama, yes.
It's Stephen Wiltshire, that his name. I can't
I
remember.
can't remember his name, but I think it's Steven. And he went on an helicopter ride across New York
York,
and was
yeah.
able to
Draw.
replicate exactly the. I was like, wow, I don't know which
You
artist could do that.
do
Like
that.
it's almost,
Do you
it was
understand?
remarkable. It was remarkable.
These children are that's the thing. So if we start seeing the possibilities in them and help them develop that, you start seeing them bringing out their best selves. You understand? I was even told that
Hmm.
in what's the name of this it's all them Google, all these Google, Microsoft, all this, that they like
Hmm.
people with autism because of their good figures, their
Hmm.
configuration and all that. I say, hey, God, let that one be my first. You start seeing them in a positive light, and
But you know this climate change activist Greta Thunberg. She's got autism as well, and it just makes, and
yeah,
that is why for her, you know how we humans can rationalize, oh yeah, the climate is, and we just carry on. She's seeing the
listen,
urgency. She's looking at the fact and saying, listen, guys, we
that
need to
you
wake up. But
wake up.
it takes a special mind to do
Yeah,
that. It takes a
yeah,
special mind to do
yeah.
that.
You know, I'm telling you, like when I just when you start talking about autism, start seeing children in different light. I tell you, these are the little things that we take for granted, but once we start seeing it, we start to
Hmm.
appreciate them and love them to our very best.
This is just a good place to wrap up because it's just you've poured out your heart, and I can see that you're actually passionate. And I'm glad I didn't even have to ask you what are the positives. Automatically, by default, you were just telling me the positive from your experience, from your journey, how
Yeah,
your son has made you a better version of yourself,
yeah,
how your
yeah,
son has made you appreciate the life in a different light. Like you're
yeah.
pausing to actually see life. You're not just going, 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 and that's what a lot of us do. And it's like we don't slow down, and
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
and yeah, thanks for sharing so much. Honestly, thanks for
Thank
sharing
you
that.
very much.
I really appreciate you.
Thank
We
you for
normally end the podcast with three things, with three questions. So it's a sentence, and I just want you to finish the sentence in your own words. Being a mom has done what for you? Being a mom has.
it has made me a better version of me. It has made me.
Mm,
I'm now more loving. I'm telling you, as a single girl,
mm.
you don't care about anybody. You just want to live your life. Where's the next bedroom? Let's go. But now, seeing these children, like, they just teach you how to be patient, how to be
Hmm.
how to be kind.
Hmm.
You know, it's just, I don't know. It's just made me a better me. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be any other. I just love being their mommy. I love being their
Oh,
mommy. Yeah, yeah.
okay. I feel happiest when
When
I
I
feel
play,
happiest when
when I play like a child, right there, working in the healthcare sector, you know how we can be. But when I just let go and play like a child, you just knew me. See, knew me really. Just the other day, I was playing in the garden. You see me running like a child, playing football with these little children. Like the happiest when I play like a child. Just little things of life, really.
if you could tell 5-year-old Chinenye something in hindsight now, what would you tell her?
Be patient
Mm,
and be confident.
mm.
Yes, be patient and be confident. Because as children, we feel like we are missing out on adulthood. We can't wait to be adults. You know,
Preach to the choir. Tell
you,
me,
you
because
know,
like we're rushing.
we're rushing. Just be patient. Enjoy that phase. Don't worry.
Mm,
And don't be ashamed to be a child. Enjoy being a child. Enjoy it. It's a gift. Childhood is a gift.
mm,
Enjoy it.
mm.
So yeah, that's what I would tell little Chinenye. And maybe a little bit of learn some political correctness, because me that time my mouth just go and mouth just go like this. Say, what have you said? And I can't take my words back. So a sprinkle of political correctness.
Oh man, oh man. This has been
Yeah.
such an amazing conversation. My hope is that for children with special needs, from autism to cerebral palsy, especially in developing countries, my hope is that the next few years we make a significant shift in the right direction.
Absolutely. One more thing I wanted to talk about, I wanted to mention, because
Mm-hmm.
in the developing countries, most of us spend our time like in churches or in the mosque,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Our religious leaders are almost like our big leaders. They need to know, they need to have departments that are responsible for looking after children with special needs. Very important.
So that's an angle I never thought of, but that actually makes perfect sense. So if we're approaching this from the education sector, the teachers, we're approaching it from the healthcare sectors with the healthcare professionals, we're educating parents, then the next part is actually the religious institution, because in developing countries, as you said, they play a huge role.
Very huge role. They play a very huge role. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you so much, Nan.
Thank you
Thank you for joining us
me.
today.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It's
Okay.
a pleasure, and I really appreciate this.